The evening sun dipped slowly behind the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and crimson as Daniel sat quietly in his car outside his office. He had left early that day, an unusual decision for a man who was always the last to leave his workplace. Something inside him told him to go home, a strange instinct that weighed heavily on his chest. His marriage to Clara had seemed steady from the outside, but for weeks he had sensed a distance growing between them. Missed dinners, vague excuses about work, and the cold way she pulled her hand away when he reached for her. He wanted to believe it was stress, maybe the pressure from her new project at the marketing firm. Clara had always been ambitious, working long hours to climb the corporate ladder. Daniel had supported her tirelessly, cooking dinner when she worked late, leaving encouraging notes in her bag, and even surprising her with little gifts to remind her that he was proud of her. But lately those gestures seemed to vanish into the void, barely acknowledged with more than a distracted smile. That evening, when he pulled up to their home, he noticed Clara's car was already in the driveway. Strange. She had told him she had a late client meeting. His chest tightened. He pushed open the front door softly and froze at the faint sound of laughter. Clara's laugh, high-pitched and playful, but it wasn't directed at him. He could hear a man's voice too, deep and smug, echoing through the hallway. Every step he took toward the bedroom felt heavier than the last. His palms were sweaty, his throat dry. Part of him wanted to turn around and walk away, pretend he hadn't heard, but another part of him needed the truth. He gently pushed the door open and his world shattered. There she was, his wife tangled in the sheets with another man. The man wasn't just anyone. It was her boss, Richard, a man Daniel had met at a company party. He remembered shaking Richard's hand, being thanked for sharing such a hard-working wife with the company. Now the image of that smirk twisted into something vile. Clara gasped when she saw him standing in the doorway, her face drained of color. Richard scrambled for his clothes, muttering some excuse about leaving. Daniel didn't shout, didn't curse. He simply stared, his silence more terrifying than any outburst could have been. "I see," was all he said before walking out, closing the door behind him. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. His mind raced, not with tears, but with icy calculation. Clara tried calling him, texting apologies, begging him to talk, but he ignored them all. He wasn't going to lash out blindly. No, he wanted her betrayal to cost her everything she thought she had gained. Over the next few weeks, Daniel played the role of the calm, forgiving husband. He let Clara spin her lies about how it was a mistake, how it meant nothing, and how she still loved him. He nodded, listened, even pretended to accept her words. Inside, however, he was gathering every piece of ammunition he needed. He documented her late-night texts, the secretive phone calls, and even installed a discreet camera in their living room when she thought he was away. The footage he collected was damning, clear proof of her continued affair with Richard. But Daniel wasn't just after Clara. He wanted Richard to pay too. He dug into Richard's background, using contacts at his own firm to uncover every shady deal, every inappropriate workplace interaction. He found enough dirt to bury him professionally. Richard wasn't just cheating with Clara. He had a history of pressuring female employees, using his position to manipulate them. Clara had simply been the latest conquest. When Daniel finally set his plan into motion, it was nothing short of brilliant. He invited Clara to dinner one Friday evening, choosing her favorite restaurant. She came dressed beautifully, clearly believing this was his way of reconciling. Over wine and appetizers, Daniel remained composed, smiling as though nothing was wrong. But then he pulled out a neatly sealed envelope and slid it across the table. "What's this?" Clara asked nervously. "Proof," Daniel replied calmly. "Proof of everything you've been doing with Richard. And copies of it have already been sent to his board of directors, as well as HR. I thought they should know what kind of man is leading their company." Clara's face went pale, her hand trembling as she opened the envelope. Inside were photos, text transcripts, and video stills that left no room for denial. She looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes, but Daniel wasn't done. "I've also spoken with a lawyer," he continued smoothly. "Given the evidence, the divorce will be very straightforward. You'll be leaving with nothing. The house, the accounts, everything we built together. You forfeited it the moment you chose him over me." Clara broke down in the middle of the restaurant, drawing curious stares from other diners. She begged, swore she could change, but Daniel remained unmoved. For years, he had given her loyalty, love, and devotion only to be repaid with betrayal. This was not anger anymore. This was justice. The fallout was swift and brutal. Richard was fired within days after the board received Daniel's package. The scandal went public and whispers spread like wildfire through the industry. His career was finished. Clara, on the other hand, found herself abandoned by both her lover and her husband. With her reputation destroyed, she struggled to find new work, her once bright future crumbling into ashes. Daniel, however, walked away with his head held high. The divorce was finalized in his favor, and he moved into a new apartment, leaving behind the ghosts of their marriage. Friends and colleagues admired his composure, never knowing the storm he had endured inside. He had turned betrayal into strength, using patience and intelligence rather than rage to secure his revenge. Months later, Clara tried once more to reach out. She showed up at his door, disheveled, her eyes swollen from crying. She pleaded for forgiveness, insisting she had lost everything and had learned her lesson. Daniel looked at her with a cold detachment. "You didn't just cheat on me, Clara," he said quietly. "You cheated on everything we built, everything I gave. That's not something you come back from." Then he closed the door, leaving her on the other side, a broken reflection of the woman she once was. Daniel's life slowly rebuilt itself. He focused on his work, his health, and his friends. He even began to travel, seeing parts of the world he had always dreamed about. The betrayal had scarred him, but it had also freed him from illusions. He realized that true strength wasn't in holding on to someone who didn't value you. It was in letting go and ensuring they never had the chance to hurt you again. As for Clara and Richard, their names became synonymous with scandal. She drifted from job to job, her reputation following her like a shadow, while Richard disappeared entirely from the corporate world. What had once been a secret thrill for them became the ruin of their lives, and Daniel? He lived with a quiet satisfaction, knowing that he hadn't just caught his wife cheating. He had orchestrated a revenge so complete that neither she nor her boss would ever forget the day they underestimated the man they betrayed.